Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Vitas Casilius of CMC, and welcome to issue 14 of our CMC Solves webinar series. Delighted to welcome you, and going to break a little bit from our normal monthly webinar program by giving everybody a review of a very important meeting that happened last week, which is our Industry Advisory Group meeting. So I'll give you a little background, talk about what we're doing with the advisory group and some key conclusions that happened in the session. Before I do that, I just want to remind you all that we are very much interested in getting your comments and suggestions, and please either provide us any questions that you have or comments in the space to the right of your screen where GoToWebinar lets you send us questions, or in the post-webinar feedback survey, or send us an email, or call us. However you want to do it, please give us your feedback and let us know. So a little bit on the IAG. The IAG was actually something we started in the fall of 2008 with, at that point, just the very seed of an idea, a couple of clients and partners, and we started talking about what was going on in the industry. And I'm proud to tell you that last week's meeting we had 16 clients, 10 partners, 13 friends of CMC, and a fabulous amount of very interesting dialogue, which lasted over the course of the evening's dinner and the full day of the IAG and the dinner instead of the rained-out ball game that followed. And I'm going to try to boil down the nuggets in the next 22 minutes, so wish me luck. The mission of our IAG meeting is to help CMC selfishly, to look around the corner, what's happening in the industry, what's coming, what are the billion-dollar problems that we can try to solve with our managed service, and not waste our time solving the $1,000 problems. So while we try to incorporate a great amount of discussion, we're really in it to listen about what's happening in the industry. One of the things that we do in the meeting, however, is to give everybody a little visibility to what CMC is up to, and we call that the CMC update. And what I pointed out in that update, and that was actually a presentation I gave, was that a year ago we introduced the Credagility solution set and started to describe the set of business solutions that we were delivering off this Credagility platform across the whole credit lifecycle, not just collections, which is where a lot of people knew CMC at first. And what I then went on to describe were the innovations that have been continuing to happen in terms of fleshing out that product solution framework, a whole range of product enhancements, expanding our geographic coverage to include clients in Canada and Australia, our pride in having a patent issued to CMC this past February, and I further described some things we're doing with staffing and our infrastructure. We did a successful fundraise last year, all of which has allowed us to expand the Credagility platform's applicability across the credit lifecycle, starting with the unified collection system, which has always differentiated us, but adding the ability to automate modifications of loans, to do some very specific third-party compliance, policy and procedure management, the ability to manage recovery and charge-off accounts, including the ability to be a system of record, marketing applications such as automating the execution of credit line increases, being able to aggregate accounts into relationships at the customer level and strategize at customer as well as account, our traditional digital channel communications, and most recently some more advanced workflow kinds of applications such as managing complaints and billing disputes. We then went through a showcase at one point in the day and gave IAG attendees visibility into new features and functions that we're building into the platform. For example, we spent a lot of time showing folks some new ideas that we have in our user interface, which has traditionally been, for the agent at least, more of a collector-specific experience, that we've now created a great deal of flexibility so that it can be enterprise-wide in its applicability, so that it can be reconfigured to do things whether I'm a collector or a recovery agent or a customer service agent or a marketer. Along with that, and I'm going to go back a slide, we were able to do some things that I think you can see on this screen by allowing us to use all of the real estate as you want to use it. and configure how your account details show up and where your calendar of activities shows up, and even a brand new section of the screen, which is what we call a dynamic content widget, which allows you there to use colors and different fonts and graphics and whatever you want, as well as the ability to create instant notifications at the individual account level that would pop up and grab the agent's attention. We then also showed how the decisioning underlying our platform can be used to create a compliance engine, which we've got now in production for customers, that allows me to limit the numbers that are made available to the agent, either by just not showing the non-compliant or ineligible numbers or just graying them out. And we further showed, I don't know if you can see the little button on top that says Connect to CTI, how we've developed telephony integration. So we've got built right into our service for unified collections the ability to have the agents make their calls right out of what we call our Flex Station interface, and therefore manage their compliance by not allowing them to click on a number that's ineligible for a call. Another part of the showcase, we were demonstrating some complaint or dispute handling applications which are managed technically through setting up a workflow and automating the steps across departments and standardizing the data that's captured and standardizing the responses to the data when it's captured. We also showed our context of an agency within which we can do some advanced workflows to capture documentation, as well as not just having the agencies or DCAs upload the documentation that you want them to upload, but also to provide the metadata about that document. In this example, entering the date of that registration so we can automate the reminder for renewals and so forth. And we can have very specific metadata about the documents that are being entered so that your vendor managers can look at all of the different documents and all of the different responses and go through and audit all of those documents and responses, and now have an audit trail of the audit results as well as the remediation results by the agency. And so that becomes a pretty robust third-party vendor and policy and procedure management. So in addition to the tech showcase, we highlighted a number of roadmap items that we are making progress against continually in our quest to enhance the product no less frequently than quarterly, that go to this list that I'm showing on the screen. More workflow and usability enhancements, adding the ability to track program enrollment, some system of record capabilities in terms of a persistent set of data on balance and interest and fees and charges and agency of record and agency commissions and so forth. The ability to use our engine to do agent and agency assignment, to then get to invoicing at the agency or portfolio level, and a lot of enhancements in terms of more visual graphic representation of our reporting using the facility that a product called Tableau provides to our customers. Further enhancing the thing I showed you with the telephony to also natively manage emails, texts, and specific click-to-dial within the context of the compliance engine, which now becomes an omni-channel compliance engine, not just call compliance. Also managing inbound call handling, the ability to record calls, and some enhancement to your flexibility with variables. Quite a lot of new stuff that we were showing to our clients at the IAG, and got a lot of good feedback on that. Another thing we did was we did a panel on what the folks that came to the IAG thought would be the impact of mobile. And I'm going to summarize that to a whole bunch of statistics that we reviewed that tell us how important mobile is becoming as so many more people have smartphones, as so many more people globally are going to have mobiles, which will be increasingly smartphone mobiles. And the fact that from a transaction standpoint, mobile is actually going to surpass the internet use on PCs in 2015, which is phenomenal. And we pointed out some other research that says that the volume of transactions to customer service will actually increase dramatically when you provide self-serve options. But the downside of that is that yes, there are more transactions, and yes, I'm handling them self-service, but the downside is that with that will come higher expectations on the part of the customer that you'll handle them seamlessly, and a higher penalty when you don't handle them correctly in terms of the customer's perception and satisfaction and loyalty. Interestingly, another phenomenon we talked about was just how many people in the U.S., it's 39.4%, are mobile only. They don't even have landlines anymore. We talked about what that means and implies for us in the collection space. And then we showed some data, which I'm not going to get into here, about what our clients are experiencing, and showing a broad range of percentages of payments currently through our credit agility platform that are originating from mobile devices, whether iPhone, Android phones, or tablets. And we made the point that while that's remarkable, since people aren't going to their collections customers and advertising, hey, you can do these transactions with us self-serve through your mobile device, as surprising as that is, that between 8 and 28% of all payments are coming from the mobile devices here in the U.S., that number is more than twice that kind of rate in the U.K., where we have clients who are experiencing a even stronger movement of customers toward wanting to interact when they are interacting in self-service off of a mobile device. So where did that leave us as a group? When we polled the panel at the end, we said, so does mobile represent a whole new ballgame like all the marketers are saying, or is mobile in fact just another level of complexity in managing the dialogue seamlessly, and could it even be a rich source of information? And that's really where people came out. It's not necessarily a whole new ballgame. It's just another area of information about how our customers want to interact with us in a seamless dialogue. And we found that that was kind of the consensus view of the IAG. So we talked a bit about how do we harness this energy. So customer experience management is the larger discussion, and it really, if you start to manage the customer's experience, will impact you not just on mobile devices, but on the web, as well as digital channels like email and text, as well as your agent conversation. And unless you put all of those different elements of the customer experience into a single dialogue, you'll be losing out on efficiency and effectiveness. And you won't be able to take the data set that you're creating and optimize it for future changes to your strategies and changes to your models. We closed with a piece of data from Informatica, who wrote a white paper that I'll quote here for a second. They really said, hey, this is a wake-up call. Legacy systems were never really built to integrate with the emerging stuff. And with each new system investment that I put into my bank comes more data, but more integration requirements, more data quality areas, and a greater need to ensure that the availability of the consistent and comprehensive view at a customer-centric level versus a product-centric level in order to really be aligned with the customer. And their conclusion is it's not a technology problem, it's a business problem, because when your business sides, marketing, sales, customer service, and business analysts, when they don't have a customer-centric view, they really can't improve customer experience, and they can't improve their operating efficiencies. So all this new technology was the subject of Matt Scarborough from Bridgeforce talking about how does this all affect compliance. And he talked about some themes about regulatory patterns that are being more and more correlated across the pond. And this whole treat customers fairly concept seems to be gaining prominence in all of the markets that Bridgeforce serves. And unfortunately, 0 defects is the expectation as opposed to 6 sigma. And so the expectation is that the lines of business are going to have much, much more knowledge of operational risk and much more control over it. And they observed that lenders are actually being held accountable for the entire end-to-end ecosystem. And by ecosystem, what Matt was talking about was coordinating across products and communication channels across the entire life cycle, not just within systems. And so when you talk about implementing compliance management systems, lenders are at a widely varying stage, and yet this is the kind of top line focus of the CFPB. So Matt's observation was that most of the pain that's been felt has been the result of executional and handoff issues, not conscious decisions by banks to not want to or not try to implement compliance management. And he pointed out that it took more than a policy change, because much bigger than the policy change is the impact on operations and on culture and on business processes and on the technology. And so he then went through a whole discussion of what are the technological needs in terms of positioning yourself for success. And he netted it down to comprehensiveness and flexibility. You know, comprehensiveness from the standpoint of making sure you have a view to the end-to-end process, including all vendors that touch a customer and all the touch points that touch a customer, and your ability to enforce and prove rules across a wide range of activities became key. And then the flexibility was really being able to not just connect to new data sources, but to also change the rules and incorporate new variables without losing your visibility to what's happening in your control and your provability of it. So it seemed like those were the technology needs of the day, and we were happy to talk about that at IAG because we think that we do that very thing. We also had a very interesting presentation prepared for us by a gentleman named Sean Buddy recently of Zest Finance. And while Sean was unable to actually join us due to a personal emergency, he had an impact on the meeting nonetheless, because he really talked about in his presentation that everything that we deal with is data. He used the analogy of animation and how it is, because of being able to handle more and more and more data over time, how it has transformed our experience of animation. But he pointed out that this is true in all walks of life, in how drinks are mixed and how golf balls are designed and everywhere. And he said really big data being the raw material means that it's all potentially useful. It's just we're not very good at knowing how to use it just yet. But he had many more interesting observations about being a data hoarder, asking more questions, and really thinking about the context within which you're asking to really get the advantage out of data. But he did come up with a quote of the day, which was, big data is like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it. No one really knows how to do it. Everyone thinks everyone else is doing it, so everyone claims they're doing it, which hands down won the Quote of the Day award for the IAG. Another thing we did is we had a few clients talking about their experience, specifically in a dynamic workflow and compliance setting and in an agency management setting. So the dynamic workflow case study was about a client whose internal audit found that they had a gap when they were trying to make individualized payment plan offers. They were being done judgmentally by agents without any analysis, without any real documentation of the borrower's circumstances and ability to pay. And therefore, when you tried to find out how it was that a given customer got a given offer, they really couldn't demonstrate it in any consistent or auditable way. And without some kind of workflow, they're left to using manual devices, spreadsheets, notes, conversations, and so forth, which really is not scalable, not provable. What they wanted to have in its place, and were able to do with Credagility, was an automated way to gather the I&E information and use that income and expense to guide the agents to a predetermined set of arrangements, or guide the agents in building their own arrangement while still ensuring that anything that the agents designed still was within the guidelines and included whatever management oversight was appropriate. So if it turned out that an agent wanted to do something that was near the borderline of what would be acceptable, we could very clearly define that borderline systemically and enforce a supervisory review for anything that wasn't within the parameters. And I believe that they wanted to make sure that they could prove auditably that they were being consistent and fair to every one of the customers who was being given a program, but they needed a system that was easy to maintain. What they found by using the Credagility platform to meet that was that they were able to create very detailed reports on the payment activity that showed them just how often they were, in fact, going to a supervisor, and they were able to lock that down and also tweak their rules so that they got about the right percentage that would have had to go to a supervisor and the right percentage that just wouldn't be approved without getting the customer to agree to more favorable terms. They found that they were able to grow the program fulfillments dramatically, as well as the number of customers who then found their way into future dated payment arrangements. And in so doing those things, they were able to dramatically increase their collections. So this is what you always want to hear when a client speaks at your meeting, when the client said, we got just what we wanted. We can now ensure the best outcome from a customer service standpoint by letting the agent work together with the customer to build an arrangement and yet stay within bank guidelines and meet the uniqueness of the customer's situation and do it in a provable way. And so as a result, they're in the process of looking at the whole account handling library to determine what else they can do to move things to the new workflow tool. So that was on the subject of compliance as it relates to program offers and so forth. Another case study later in the day covered the agency compliance subject, where a client had a challenge of a large number of people managing outsourced debt collections agencies and debt sales, and they were completely manual and spreadsheet based for their reporting and their invoicing and all the follow-ups. When they did have to deal with questions back and forth with the DCA, those were being handled via email and by phone calls, which was not secure. And because this was all manual, the program offers that were given out from one DCA to another were completely judgmental and therefore inconsistent and not auditable in any systemic way. And everything that they told us they're struggling with from their debt collections agencies is equally true in their debt sales. So they basically took the standard CMC unified collection solution and used its functions to do things like account distribution to various DCAs off of the decision engine. So that means they can control which segments and for what reasons different accounts go to different DCAs. And then they can create workflows and have created workflows for their DCAs to use to either determine who gets a particular program offer, who requires a particular kind of program called hardship that is dependent on certain information being submitted by the customer and certain documentation being submitted by the customer. And they're also using our document and disclosure template manager so that all of the documentation that goes back and forth and all disclosures made by DCA agents can be consistent and can be legally compliant. They're actually using our Flex Station desktop application for the agents and for managers within the bank to look at account information consistently. And then they're using our standard reporting to, to do what they're using to oversee the agents and to manage the interactions more effectively. In addition to all of that, they're using a different credit agility solution called vendor document management that I mentioned earlier in the technology showcase to capture and catalog and follow up on DCA documents. So what they're really interested in doing is taking 12 of those 18 folks, and they're seeing this happen now by reducing the call volume significantly, by having the remaining vendor management team focus on improving how they place to which agencies, on training the DCAs to manage and follow to bank standards, and ensuring the quality of the DCA's work, not spending all their time just trying to keep track of where the data is and who has what. So by automating that statement set and by automating the reporting, they were able to save a great deal of time in reporting as well. So I'd like to close with the sort of observation that if you're listening to this and you weren't able to join us for the IAG, I hope that you will certainly join us for the next one. And I think you could see from how quickly I ran through it that a lot of good information was disseminated and also shared between the IAG participants. And the reason that they're interested is that they look at CMC and they say, I see a company that was founded by people that are out of the credit and risk space that is rapidly expanding, has been very successful at automating collections and recovery and marketing and loan modification applications for the last 6 years, and that seems to be gaining momentum on the back of the fact that we deliver this as a managed service. We managed it that way because we had the luxury of building it from the ground up. And inside the solution is a decision engine that would be the equivalent of a Triad or Blaze or Probe, as well as a workflow engine, which would be the equivalent of like a Pega workflow. That's all driven off a single unified database so that we don't have to have separate integration code to take those things and put them together. And by choosing a web-based delivery model, we're able to really simplify and speed the deployment of this functionality. Some of the examples, we set up our credit line increase application and had it operational for a client within 45 days. We had our first vendor third-party document management solution up and running for a client within 2 weeks. That kind of agility doesn't just happen. It only happens when you have the luxury of building a really robust system from the ground up. And that robust system includes all of the features here where I'm going to take data from any different system on the left. I don't care. I'm agnostic to which systems of record or external systems I'm getting data from and putting data to. And on the right-hand side, I provide interfaces for administrators, for strategists, as well as for agents and customers. And I manage all of the different channels of communication into a seamless dialogue that reflects your strategy for how you want to manage the customer experience, whether it's the treatments or whether it's which users can do what, whether it's what content goes in which document or disclosure, what documents need to be uploaded to us or downloaded from us in a workflow, what events should kick off in real-time workflows or decisioning, what my workflows and decisioning need to be, as well as capturing information from customers and making individualized program offers. So we offer a very broad range of products that are the solutions I discussed earlier off the back of the platform that gives you a broad palette of capabilities. So hopefully this has been moving along fast enough to keep you interested, and if you want more information about anything we've talked about, if you'd like more insight into some of the speakers of the IAG or any of the information I've talked about, please shoot us an email, or as I mentioned earlier, give us your feedback in the post-webinar survey. We'll be back next month with another installation of the CMC Solves that will be on a topic of interest, and if you have any more topics to suggest, go ahead and put those in your feedback as well. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.